Hello everybody. So a little bit of a different video today, since I want to analyze Enphase and Solaredge next to each other. So I want to do kind of a face-off between Enphase and Solaredge and give points. And so I have 9 different categories where I'm going to assign points in the face-off and tell you which stock, in my view, between Enphase and Solaredge, which Solaredge makes sense. You know, it's the biggest competitor of Enphase, so it makes sense to analyze both, to tell you which one I prefer, knowing that I own both. Enphase is my second largest position in the portfolio. Solaredge, I just recently started a position because I see potential for Solaredge too. So let me get started with everything that matters in my view. So first things first, let's start with the customers and the type of customer. So Enphase, the business is still 75% in North America, 25% in the rest of the world. But the rest of the world is mostly Europe, right, followed by Australia. They're also entering Latin America. And it's important to note that the international business for them is growing very, very, very fast at about 132% in the case of Europe, for example. So it's very fast growth. The business in North America grew year over year 61%. We're having a slowdown right now, and that slowdown is the reason why the stock is down. But it's still a business that's mostly US, but Europe is growing very fast. And if this pace continues, this is a business that could be mostly Europe in a few years. Commercial business for Enphase is just getting started. It's something new. So the business of Enphase is in the US mostly. Now, when it comes to Solaredge, Solaredge is very interesting in the sense that Europe right now for Solaredge is 76% of the sales. So Solaredge is a European company that sells mostly to Europe, 76% of the sales. But if you continue that growth, right, 1 year from now, they may have 70% commercial and 30% residential, likely 80% in Europe. Because if you look at their mix, the mix of Solaredge is 60% of their inverter sales are for commercial application and for businesses. And this is growing super fast at 115%. And actually, I've listened to the calls of Solaredge, and the CEO is on the record saying that he's surprised seeing that much growth in commercial. This is a business whose commercial growth is stunning, and it is surprising them, right? And because initially it was just residential. Residential is now 40% of the business, growing 49% year over year. And like I said, so in the future, I anticipate Solaredge to be 2/3 of the business commercial in the future, only 1/3 residential, and mostly Europe. So the customer mix is slightly different. Now, because I'm comparing Solaredge to Enphase, I'm mostly going to use residential applications in order to assign my points and say who wins and who doesn't win, because I believe that focusing on the end consumer, focusing on individual homes, is still the largest total addressable market in my view. So that was point number one. Point number one is a tie, by the way. In my view, it's a tie. Both of these businesses, if trends continue, both of them are going to be mostly European businesses. Let's talk about whole home ecosystems. So these are the grid of your house, inside your house, the energy management of your house. Your whole house has its own power plant. And the question is, do both of these companies offer everything you need to fully manage your house? And the answer to that is yes. Whether it's Enphase or Solaredge, they have a whole home ecosystem that allows you to manage everything from the battery to the production of electricity to the resale to the grid to the management in the cloud to the charging of your EVs. These are a very holistic solution, and they are a tie again on this one. Now, moving on to the third point, which is most controversial, and it is the AC/DC conversation. AC versus DC. If you follow the channel, you know that I'm a big fan of Enphase, and I am a big fan of AC coupled system, that is microinverters. Microinverters are AC coupled system. If you don't know, microinverters are these tiny little boxes that you put under each panel on top of the roof, and you need to have either those or optimizer under each panel on your roof in order to comply with the code. In old systems, the solar panels, the wires, they would go through your house without any shutoff, without any rapid shutdown. systems need to have rapid shutdowns, and that's why microinverters became a thing. It was like, okay, well, we gotta put a rapid shutdown system near the panel. Why not put the inverter near the panel? That's how Enphase got started, and there's a lot of benefits to do with this. The main benefit is that each panel becomes its own solar system. You don't have an entire solar system with multiple panels. Each panel is its own solar systems. And when you do this, you have a lot of benefits. First of all, this is a technology that relies tremendously on consumer electronics and learnings from consumer electronics. String inverters are much closer in the way they are manufactured to legacy transformers. And because of that, Enphase product has a 25-year warranty. So a 25-year warranty. It's a one-step install. You'll see, I'll show you next slide. Because you always have to put that rapid shutdown near your panel, if you put a central inverter, you're still going to need to put an optimizer under the panel. So that's only one step versus two steps install. It's redundant. If one of them dies, you don't lose the whole system. With a central inverter, you lose the whole system. Then, ease of manufacturing. These are much easier to manufacture. You can have large consumer electronics inspired assembly lines. It's one PCB board. It's very easy to install, to manufacture. Very little screws, very light product. It has nothing to do with a central inverter, which is a much more heavy type of fabrication, and that is much closer to industry than it is to consumer electronics. This product is a consumer electronics product. The central inverter is an industrial product, in my view. You have endless expandability of your install. If you want to add just 3 solar panels to your solar roof, you can with this. It's very easy. Each solar panel is its own system. You can't do that with central inverters or string inverters. You don't have the issue of having very, very, very high voltage strings going through your house. Very often, a optimized central inverter for your home will have a string of more than 5,000 watt going for your house. That is a lot, and a lot of families don't want to have that much power in a single point. All electricians, and this is important for installers, all electricians know AC well and can work with AC. Now, there is a downside to microinverters, and that downside is very heavily promoted by the anti-Enphase community or the pro-Solaredge community, which is the idea that whenever you sell a battery with those systems, which batteries are the future, I mean, I agree that batteries are the future, we can all agree with that, you have the issue of efficiency, because these IQ8s, so the latest IQ8 right now, has a normal operating condition efficiency of 97%. And because you convert it at the panel level, this is oftentimes what has to happen for night use. DC to AC, so you lose 3%. Okay, and then you transfer it back from AC to DC to charge the battery, so you lose 3% again. And then at night, when you need to use the power, you do DC to AC again. So you do 97% again. So it's a 91.2% night use efficiency. And I think this is so essential to specify that this is night use efficiency, i.e. when you're very unlikely to use power. Because during the day, you're not going to be drawing any electricity from the battery. Right? During the day, when the sun is out, the system is going to prioritize the energy coming straight from your panels to your appliances, to whatever you use electricity for. So during the day, your efficiency during the day, when you consume most of your energy, is going to be 97%. It's not going to be 91%. It's going to be 97% during most of the day. This is why, in my view, this is not a major problem. There is also, and this is important to say, that IQ9 and IQ10s, which we know they are working on, Battery has talked about those multiple times in the call, they will have better efficiency. Will we have an IQ9 or an IQ10 that will have 98.5% efficiency? Yes. So this is also a temporary issue, in my view, this efficiency, because if you get, say, a 99% efficiency microinverter, then you're dealing with a 97% after a freeway conversion. So to me, this is not a major problem. We all use AC systems in our homes, and much of our most cherished devices, whether it is the TV, the laptop, the phone, they all do AC to DC conversion, and it doesn't bother anybody. So all of a sudden it bothers people because that's Solaredge. Solaredge has that very, very clever marketing, very, very clever selling point for Solaredge. But when you realize that it's technically night use efficiency and not day use efficiency, it makes a difference. Now, what are the pros of Solaredge? So one of the pros of Solaredge is that during a warranty claim, it's easier to replace a central inverter than it is to go on the roof to remove one panel and put a new microinverter and put the panel back. But this is a benefit to the installer. This is not a benefit to the consumer. This is a benefit to the installer. That's the big selling point. And the other big selling point is that their best central inverters, which remember is more expensive than a lot of inverters that they will recommend, but the best that they have is a 99% normal condition efficiency inverter. So 99% efficiency, but if you read the fine print, it is with a 5,900 watt string. So this is, I don't know if you can see, but this is the gauge of the wire. That would correspond to either a 6 or a 4 gauge, but most likely a 6 gauge wire. That's a pretty thick wire that you want to have for your house for this. I mean, your dryer cable is not very big compared to what you need, and a lot of people are not comfortable having this through their home. I definitely would not be. But anyways, I just want to point that out. So, and this is another important thing. When we say 99% efficiency, this is something where we have to be granular when we compare both of them. Is you have to consume, right, 1,000 watts plus to achieve that high efficiency. High efficiency is not achieved at smaller loads. And for that, you have to go into the technical brochure to actually realize that yes, it's very efficient when you use a lot of power and when you have optimal use. And if you see that's curvilinear, so you can see that the microinverter is going to be most efficient at 2,500 watt, right? But if it is at night, for example, and your house is idle and uses literally nothing, maybe 500 watts, you're not going to get to 99% efficiency. You're going to get to 96, 95% efficiency-ish. That's where you're going to get if your house is idle. So if you have a very, very big house, that doesn't matter. But if you have a European-sized home, yeah, your idle rate is not going to be 1,000 watt. It's going to be much lower than that. And so you're not going to achieve that 99% efficiency. I'm sorry I'm spending a little time on this, but I think this is important because I get it all the time in the comments section. Enphase does not work because you have to do multiple conversions. By the way, this is not a problem for Enphase because Enphase batteries, of course, come loaded with microinverters. And so that means that if you have a very, very tiny power draw, your microinverter is going to be optimized, right? You're only going to use one of those. So it's going to be optimized when you do the conversion. So that's a big deal. And we'll see why this is a big deal. This is going to be a big deal for the IRA. That the fact that whenever you sell a battery means you manufacture more microinverters is going to be a tremendous deal when we talk about the IRA. So stay tuned a second when I get to that stage of the video. So now that I've put this out there, what are some of the cons? Let's talk about some of the cons. Agreeing that it's true technically that there is slightly better efficiency under certain conditions with the central inverters. Now, what are the cons? The cons are it's a 12-year warranty. You got to pay thousands of dollars if you want to expand that. So that's the problem. Another con is twice the install work. Not only do you have to put an optimizer under each panel, not only can these optimizers fail, by the way, and if they fail, you'll still have to go on the roof and replace them, right? Another problem is, if you want to expand your system, guess what? You can't. You can only double your system. What if you don't want to double your system? What if you want to increase the size of your system by 30%? Because you got an electric car. You got a new electric car at the house. Now it makes sense to increase the size of the system by 30%. You can't do that with a central inverter. It's not possible. It's not possible to do that. You can only double or triple. So that's a big issue in my view. They have a single point of failure. That inverter, if it fails, your installer is going to have to order it again and you may be out of power.
You have a single string. I've already highlighted the issue with a single string. In my view, I think it's personal opinion. I wouldn't be comfortable with it, right? Now, I'm gonna say this, and I may be nitpicking, but in the comment section, I think a lot of the comments about Enphase have been a little bit of nitpicking. So let me be very clear. In the morning, you are going to lose harvest with a central inverter. And you're not going to lose that harvest with a microinverter, because a microinverter has a much lower startup voltage. Namely 18 volts is the startup voltage of a microinverter. The startup voltage of a central inverter is about 200 volts. Which means, and you may tell me, oh, well, wait a minute, what if all of the panels get the sun at the same time, and that string turns on and you get 200 volts and the inverter turns on? Well, in that case, it's true. But it does not work for any sort of shading, for any sort of complex roof, right? You may have sun only on one side of your house and not on the other side. So in that case, even 5 panels would not be enough for you to turn on the central inverter. So you're going to lose harvest in the morning and at night in these areas of the day where you don't get full sun. When you don't get full sun, you're going to lose some production because of the startup voltage, which is much higher on central inverters than it is on microinverters. So yes, I'm nitpicking a little bit. In the grand scheme of things, over 1 year does not make that big of a difference. But I would argue that having 91% efficiency versus 97% efficiency at night does not make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things, because we use very little energy at night. So I want to ding Solaredge on this here. It's less efficient in resale applications. So let's not forget that we're going through a transition. Right now we're going through a transition where, okay, I agree that most homes will have their batteries. And, most solar systems down the road will be sold with batteries. But this is still a transition. If you go in the US, you still have plenty of states with NEM 2.0 style feed-in tariffs. Around the world, you still have plenty of states with these tariffs. So there's plenty of setups right now in the USA where you don't need a battery, where you can still get the same deal that Californians were getting during NEM 3, right? And so for these people, getting Enphase makes way more sense, because you use the grid as a battery. And once your state changes the net energy metering rules, you're grandfathered in A, but if you're not grandfathered in, then you can think about adding a battery and getting a battery. So I think it's a superior system from that standpoint. Also, and this is the last point, and this is a big distinction. In case of failure, the battery may not be usable. So if it's not going to be usable. If you have just a central inverter and you have a failure, you're not going to be able to use your battery at night or in case of an emergency. And lastly, there's issues with dual loads when you have just one battery. When you have just one battery setup and you have a central inverter, you're going to have big issues with dual loads, because typically batteries can only take in power or take power out, but they can't really do both. With the Enphase system, you can do both, because you have multiple microinverters, so you have multiple channels. So you can have a microinverter that does the DC to AC conversion, and another microinverter that does the AC to DC, the DC to AC conversion on different cells of a battery. You can't do that if you just have one central inverter. So in other words, having multiple microinverters, right? And say you get 20 solar panels, so you have 20 on the roof, and then you have 6 in your battery setup. It allows you to be extremely, extremely nimble, right? It allows you to use your electricity straight from your panel to your house and be nimble with that. It allows you to charge some, discharge some battery at the same time and be nimble with that. The system is much more enabled and much more bespoke, if you will. I think you can make a much more bespoke system with Enphase than you can with Solaredge. Okay, so I hope that helps. I hope that clarification on both setups was interesting to you, and I will still, so to me, Enphase wins here, and I will still admit that for commercial applications, for very big applications, and also for homes with very simple roofs, like if you have a 2-pane roof or a single-pane roof that is looking over at the south, right? It's headed south or north if you're in Australia. It's headed south, and it's just one pane, one single pane that you have to put solar panels, and you don't have any trees. That might win. There's still ways. There's still situations where that wins. But in my view, I much prefer Enphase. Anyways, installer networks. So installer networks, I'm giving them a tie because they both have very large installer networks. If you look at the installer network of Enphase is much bigger in the USA, but the installer network of Solaredge is much bigger in Europe. Both systems are liked by installers for different reasons. I would say the quote-unquote higher-end, more expensive installers will prefer Enphase. They'll prefer Enphase for the reliability of the inverter system. They'll prefer Enphase for the customer service. It also is going to help their business because you're likely going to get reviews when you're a small business. Online reviews are very important, and you want to make sure that you install a system that is known for customer service, known for reliability, and that's what Enphase is. But Enphase is going to have a slightly tougher time to sell for price-only shoppers, for shoppers that are non-technical, that are not really interested in solar, and that are just getting solar to save money. They're going to have a slightly higher time too. However, and I think this is a plus, largely not covered enough in any content about Enphase, but is the fact that an AC-coupled system like Enphase makes it easy to find qualified electricians. Every single qualified electrician knows how to work AC. DC electricians are not as easy to find. I think that's an important point. Now, why would installers also like Solaredge? Well, they like Solaredge because Solaredge, you can end up with a very cheap system. You can sell an inexpensive system with Solaredge if you don't sell the warranty. If you remove the warranty out of the equation, I firmly believe that for most systems, if you're going to get the 25-year warranty, you're going to be roughly at the same price. And then it makes little sense for me to get Solaredge. But if not, if you don't get the warranty, you're going to get a little cheaper with Solaredge, a little cheaper with Solaredge. Installers can also get a little creative. For example, they don't have to necessarily use Solaredge optimizers. They can use very cheap optimizers from China and just install Solaredge. You can really design a very... You can go really far in how cheap your system is. And so for buyers who are interested in very cheap installs, we are typically going to prefer Solaredge. Solaredge also has an efficacious selling narrative. I've discussed at length the efficiency narrative, which is mostly a narrative in my view. There's the clipping narrative, and the clipping narrative is much more disingenuine in my view, because the clipping narrative here is how it goes. It's like, oh, I'm choosing these premium solar panels. These are 500-watt solar panels. Look, the Enphase product, the microinverter is only rated for 380 watts AC or 420 watt DC. It's not going to work. You're going to be losing because you're installing a 500 watt panel and it's a 420 watt DC panel. But they forget to say that the advertised rating of the panel is not the normal condition rating of the panel. Panels, when you say you buy a 500 watt panel, it yields 500 watt in very perfect conditions in a lab at 25 degrees Celsius in perfect lab conditions, which almost never, ever, ever happen in the real world. So the real world wattage of solar panels need to be put forward, but a lot of installers do not put forward the real world wattage. They compare the lab wattage of the solar panel to Enphase's power for their microinverter, and they say, look, you're going to lose 100 watts, except, of course, Enphase microinverters are optimized for the real-world conditions. They are not optimized for the lab-rated condition. And I think this is something where Enphase actually could benefit from a little advertising on this, because I've heard the clipping argument way too much. And the truth is, you're not operating your panels in a lab. very few conditions are you going to get are you going to get the wattage that your panel is rated for. That makes some sense. And installers may make a little more money when they sell Solaredge. So there's setups, there's reasons why installers sometimes make more money when they sell Solaredge. So to me, it's a tie. I see their installer networks seeing benefits in both. I much prefer Enphase, but I may be biased. But anyways, it's okay. Just know I own both stocks, but much bigger position in Enphase because of that. Okay, now this is the big reason why Enphase is my number 2 position. Biggest reason. We are dealing with something that has happened in Europe. A little background about me. Before I moved to the US in 2009, 2010, I was working in France, and I was seeing people getting into solar and awful incentives. Like the government had put in place awful incentive, which made the people who put solar panels very, very wealthy, because those incentives were poorly designed, or at least they were designed. They worked too well, essentially. And I think we're getting in a situation with Enphase where these incentives, in my view, are too high. If they work too well, like this is going to be ridiculous. Enphase is going to be making a ridiculous amount of money. So they have 2 US facilities right now, and they intend to grow. They've said that they wanted 6 of them. So they're building them fast. They're building new facilities, right? And let's assume that the microinverter today, their best one is the IQP at 480 watt AC. But we know Enphase is working on the IQ9 and the IQ10. And we know the IQ9 and IQ10 will have crazy AC wattage. Why? Why would it? Because of that incentive. That's the reason why it would, because of that incentive. So they're going to increase the power of these microinverters to the max to get these incentives. And this is what the battery has told us, right? Battery told us that yes, they want the US to become an export hub. The US is going to be a main export hub for them, and they're building capacity in the US for 18 million USA-made microinverters. 18 million. So let's do a quick math. The subsidies, the IRA bill essentially shows microinverters. I mean, they're essentially paying, not exactly twice, but almost twice as much per watt for microinverters than they are for central inverters or string inverters. So the IRA bill, it looks like it was written for Enphase, quite frankly. I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like it was written for Enphase. And so if you read it, quick math, right? I'm doing quick math. So battery said 18 million. And again, that's wave 1. He may want to do more. And keep in mind, these incentives stay in place until 2033. And then you have a 2-year phase out. So, wow, right? Big deal. So, what is the quick math here? 18 million per year times 480 watt AC, but I think they will do more, but we'll see. But we might get a microinverter that's going to be 600 watts someday, not too far in the future. Times 11 cents. If you calculate that, that's $950 million in tax-funded subsidies per year. Per year. I mean, this is stunning. This is a $16 billion company. And keep in mind, they already make cash on these, and then they're going to get this much in subsidies? I mean, so what they're doing, what is the strategy of Enphase? Well, yeah, the US is going to be an export hub. They're going into the commercial world and commercial system and doing microinverters for commercial. And they're trying to literally flood the world with US-made microinverters, or at least that's the feeling that I get. They might not be as straightforward as I am in this video, but that's the feeling that I get. That is the reason why they design their battery system like this. It's wonderful, 12 microinverters per battery system. So each house now is going to have 30 to 40 microinverter per house that they set up, and you can use these as a hub for export. And these are facilities that are mostly heavily automated. I mean, this is just to me, this reason alone is it's crazy that they would put in place an incentive so good. My joke goes in my prior Enphase video is that those taxpayer incentives are going to be so great that it's as though the government was paying for the cost of goods sold of Enphase. The government is paying for the cost of a product, and you're going to get into insane margins, insane gross margin on these products. So anyways, we're putting them everywhere. And Solaredge, of course, as one manufacturing facility in the USA, they're looking to expand, but they're taking their time. And the CEO has noted, and I've heard him say this on the call, and I was disappointed to hear that they don't want the USA to be an export hub for the world. Well, I wish they did. All right, I mean, because these incentives are still pretty good, At 6 cents per watt. I mean, it's true that a central inverter is 5,000 watts, so it's very, very tougher to manufacture, but you still get that incentive. So anyways, that's kind of a reason why. Also, and this is an important consideration, is shipping. I know it may seem like a silly one, but for example, Solaredge explained in the latest call that because of some of their demand, they had to airship string inverters to Europe, and when they airship them, it costs quite a bit to ship by air. Shipping is expensive because of the weight of the central inverters. Now you can see Enphase's microinverters are consumer electronics. They're very, very tiny, and they are much easier to ship. They can be, if you look at these boxes that hold them, they're just like your random Amazon box. They're much lighter. And that's, I think, an important point that also helps Enphase establish the US as the manufacturing hub for the world. And you know what? I mean, I think this is a very bad deal for the taxpayer, but this may be a very good deal for US industry, honestly, because you would be, just like China has kind of become the leader for drones and the leader for solar panels and for the leader for electric cars and batteries aside from Tesla, because of these government subsidies. Well, the US is creating a world leader in inverters, essentially, is kind of one way you could look at it. And obviously that's gonna work. They're gonna have a lot of manufacturing in the USA from this IRA bill. And this stock is down 60-70% year to date. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous how short-term people are. Anyways, the market, not people, but the market. Okay, moving on to growth. So by the way, this was an obvious win for Enphase on the benefits of the IRA. How about the growth? So technically, Solaredge grows, if you round it, it's less than 1% if you remove the rounding. But technically, Solaredge is just a tad growing faster than Enphase per analysts. But it's a tie because it's close enough. I mean, it's so close. This is a tie. This is not even funny. Who knows? One year, Enphase may grow faster. And if you look at past growth, Enphase actually at 60% year over year in sales versus 30-ish% for Solaredge. So the past growth of Enphase was much higher than Solaredge's. Makes sense because of California and because all of the sales that they've made in California due to the end of NEM 3, but still. Okay, now let's talk about the margins. Now, for the margins, Enphase clearly wins. It's not even a contest. 44% gross margin, EBITDA margin 25%, Solaredge 15%. The margins of Enphase are poised to increase tremendously because of the IRA, as discussed. All right, let me move on to now valuation. When it comes to valuation, Solaredge clearly wins. So if you're not familiar with my valuation spreadsheet, what do I ask? I ask, how much am I paying for each percentage point of future growth? How much am I paying for that future growth? And when I look at Solaredge, predicted to grow 33%, I'm only paying a 0.23 for that future revenue growth versus Enphase, where I'm paying about double for that revenue growth. So Enphase is more expensive than Solaredge. Now, I believe that Enphase is a more quality business, is a higher quality business, what I believe. So I think it's fair. Noteworthy to say that at this valuation, it is lower than the average stock in my spreadsheet. Enphase is cheaper than the average stock in my spreadsheet, which is still saying a lot for the company that I believe is leading in the field. Now, how about shares outstanding and buybacks? So as you know, I have different opinions than most YouTubers on this. Most YouTubers will look at stock-based compensation and be like, "Oh, stock-based compensation is too high. I don't want to touch the stock." I don't have any problem with that. In fact, if you look at Enphase, you can see that between 2016 and 2018, they essentially doubled the number of shares outstanding. Enphase is the top 2 performing stock in the S&P 500. Did it hurt Enphase to double the share count? No, it did not. It motivated executives. It motivated the best engineers. It motivated people working there. That's what stock-based compensation does. It motivates people. If you are going to be smart enough to be able to launch a business on your own and be an entrepreneur on your own, to quote Elon Musk, if you read the biography of Elon Musk, he says, "I want my people in my company to be hardcore. They have to be very hardcore." Right? A person who's very hardcore, they are not going to stand for compensation of $100,000 and then no SBC, right? No, they're going to want SBC. If you're going to be hardcore, you're going to want SBC. You're going to want to be aligned in the firm. You're going to want to be all in the firm. And keep in mind that this is also a big distinction, I believe, between 21st century business and 20th century business. In 20th century business, labor is a factor of production. Labor produces the good. Today, it is not the case anymore. Today, it's not labor who produces the good. Today, you get labor, you pay for high-quality decisions, high-quality decision-making. Now, the best player at chess is going to be so much better than the second best, right? The best at something is so much better than the second best. That's why these companies have no choice but to pay very high compensation. And I know I am in the minority. That's okay. You don't have to agree with that. I know I'm in the minority on this, but still. So let's go back to buybacks. If you look at Solaredge has roughly 5% of dilution each year, roughly when you look at it. And Enphase, because they've been engaged in buyback over the past 12 months, and because they've just announced another $1 billion share buyback program at approximately probably $200 million a quarter is what they'll do, it's very likely that the number of shares outstanding for Enphase, in my view, is not going to go up. It's going to be flat. We might even see a decline, as we've seen a few times with Enphase. So either way, in my view, it's not a problem for either of these stocks. Enphase makes enough cash flow and enough money now to be able to do buybacks. If you know me and if you know the channel, I would much rather see no buybacks, and I would much rather see take that $1 billion and invest it in the future, invest it in marketing, invest it in growth, invest it in sponsoring interest rates so that interest rates are a non-issue, right? You could pay a share of that interest rates. Even price cuts. I wouldn't have a problem seeing them using that $1 billion to do a price cut, a little bit of a price cut, not that much, but a little bit. But anyways, they want to do a buyback. That's fine. So conclusion. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is Enphase wins. So you can go back for all 9 factors that I analyzed today, and Enphase wins at 8 of them, and there is a tie for 4 of them, and there is 1 win for 1 of them for Solaredge. So Solaredge only wins, in my view, valuation, which is funny. If you watch my video about why I'm buying Solaredge, I said I'm buying it mostly because of the valuation. The one thing where Solaredge clearly wins is the valuation. This stock is clearly undervalued, much more undervalued than Enphase, in my view. It's gone too far. Solaredge fell much harder. But aside from the valuation, I believe that for most things, Enphase is better, in my view. And that's why it's my second biggest position, and Solaredge is a new position for me now. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This was just entertainment, and I hope you were entertained. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and please follow me on X if you can. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.